Quantum just made a major announcement yesterday about advancing and creating your first generation quantum random number generator microchip. Can you tell us a little bit about this, please?
Yes, of course. So yes, it was actually a very important milestone for us because we created already about a year and a half ago. I mean, our first, I would say, working prototype, what we call our foundation, technology. And with that, we are creating several iterations, several possible devices that will contain the same characteristic, I mean, basically creating that source of entropy that comes, from quantum mechanics. And that source of entropy, just to remind everybody, is a very important, crucial to make the encryption of a very high quality. So, so in that perspective, I think now the possibility to miniaturize, in fact, our technology, this is actually what the microchip does, basically without, will compromise any functionality and any even throughput, and I would say efficiency of the technology. You're able basically to have basically our device now on the size of basically a nail. This is what, it's about a 1 centimeter square, I mean, as big, and so it is for us, actually, it means that you could be able later on, I mean, to put our technology basically in anything that is connected to the internet in one way or another. So, and the purpose for that, obviously, of doing that, it's actually to our microchip would participate to create an encryption and a cybersecurity, basically, defense that would allow most of these product containing that microchip to become unhackable, or at least extremely difficult to hack.
Well, I'm certain that most of our audience understands what a microchip is, but they may want you to dumb down what a quantum random number generator is and how a company can use that to protect themselves.
So, I mean, when you look at how everything is, I mean, any communication over the internet, or any communication in general has to be scrambled, if you want that no third party able to read or interfere with the content of your message. So encryption exists for a long time. And without getting too technical here, because it can become extremely technical, particularly when you talk about there is a science of encryption called cryptography, and that could be extremely complicated. So without getting too technical, what is important is that the way you seed or you start, in fact, encryption depends very much on the randomness of the architecture of that encryption. Basically, it is well recognized that the most random, in fact, your encryption is, the better it's going to be, or the most difficult it to be for a third party actually to guess there is a very sequence or not into your encryption, and that would prevent, in fact, the third party to be able to guess what is basically the encryption pattern. And if they're able to do that, they're able to predict what's going to the future of your message and decrypt the message. So having a high randomness basically prevent these to happen. So what do we do here is that, okay, well, why don't you use randomness? Well, pure randomness is impossible to obtain in our world. The world we live today. It's called classical physics. There is nothing random, pure random. There is a lot of complex phenomena, but there is no pure random numbers or pure random phenomena. If you wanted to obtain a pure source of randomness, you have to rely on quantum physics. And this is why, the reason why there is a connection now with the quantum technology and the quantum revolution. It's to obtain that, in fact, that source of pure randomness. So we do that. In fact, it's an invention that was done at the University of Sherbrooke by a professor, a world-renowned specialist in quantum noise. And what you do basically is using the property of quantum particles that are at the same time, they are a particle with a mass, and at the same time, they can behave like a wave. How they behave like a wave or as a particle is a completely random phenomenon. So you exploit that to create basically a stream of electrons of the current, I mean, that's the reason why quantum, the name of the company is called Quantum eMotion. It's due to the motion of electrons, okay? And obtaining that, basically, you can create a current of electrons that are completely time, independent. So that means that that signal can be after that transformed in the device into a source of pure random bits. That's what they call it. I'm sorry to be a little bit too technical, but there's very difficult to explain that without getting it a little bit technical.
I then want to ask you, we really enjoyed your presentation at yesterday's investor talk. And some of our investors were interested in how the larger corporations, the Intels out there, would they not be able to create an AI-driven, quantum-directed code, breaker for all intents purposes to counter? I mean, how can a small company provide such an incredibly competitive way for cybersecurity?
First of all, I mean, the research on QRNGs and everything exists already for a while. So there are companies out there. We're not the only one, I mean, that doing that. However, the majority of these companies are using another, I would say, source of, I mean, they're using another quantum particle, it's called a photon, to actually generate the same, basically, randomness. So our difference here is like we're using electrons, and we're pretty much the only ones who, at least we are the only ones who have the original patents on that. Okay, so and we believe that our approach is I would say very robust. It's very, I would say, efficient, and provides actually a source of randomness that is extremely, producing randomness at high speed. And ultimately, it's extremely, I would say, also cheap to produce. So, and since it's electrons, it's embeds, seamless, with the other electronics. So we have a technology that actually is superior, I think, to the competition in many ways.
So how does the incorporation of this QRNG technology into a microchip represent a pivotal advancement in quantum communication technology?
Because at the same time, now that it allows actually to, bring that, basically technology to almost everything connected to the internet. I mean, any device, I mean, because now a lot of device will need to be also self-sufficient when it comes to security, because attacks sometimes are so fast. For example, one of the big markets for the technology down the road would be, the self-driving cars. We expecting at some point, that when that technology or that cars will be ready, that will have actually on the roads a lot of cars will driving themselves without having a driver. I mean, they will be driven by GPS. It's already exists, but it's still not mainstream. And in the future, so how do you prevent somebody to attack or actually hack a car? Actually, there are already movies, sci-fi movies, that actually you could see in fact, cars, electric cars that actually hacked, and basically they're starting to create havoc on the streets, because basically they're out of control. So how do you prevent that? This is going to be a big challenge because, to be able to do that, the security systems in the cars will have to be almost independent, so of external, any input. So you need to starting to create now systems that are going to be, in terms of security, self-sufficient. And the source of randomness to create, for example, a very high, security encryption, in that case, will need actually technologies like the microchip to be able to be efficient in responding to an attack. They'll have to be respond to in milliseconds, to prevent actually these attacks.
So right now, what's
Yeah.
your initial line of sales that you can use with the quantum random number generator microchip?
First of all, we still, I mean, if you read the press release, we have the chip. We still need to do a run. I mean, we're expecting actually the final, because we had to do a few changes. I mean, improvements. On the chip. But it's very trivial though, so that should not be an issue. We should expect actually by next fall to have the fully functional chip. So once we have that, I think our first for us, I think I said in the previous interviews that we had, that we focus very much on healthcare, for example. It's a huge market, not very well served in terms of cybersecurity. And on top of that, it's a market where whoever supplies a solution, healthcare, is responsible for the security. And security is becoming actually integrated as part of the quality of the product. So medical device, for example, almost every new medical device is one way or another connected to the internet. So it's extremely important, to have the top-notch security technology to prevent actually that patients, suffer an attack, from hackers. There's been so many. Give you a few examples that are actually already, famous. I think it happens in the United States several times. There's been people that had these new, for example, pacemakers that are connected, with the internet, for better monitoring, etc. Well, they've been hacked. Imagine if you receive a message, saying, "Oh, if you don't send these, numbers of dollars or Bitcoin by tomorrow, we'll turn off your pacemaker." So I don't think you're going to spend a nice, very good night, that at that moment. I mean, this is obviously very dramatic, but I mean, these situations can happen actually more and more in the future. And let's not forget that why we're interested in healthcare is that it's the number one, or at least one of the top assets that the hackers are going after. It is a very lucrative for them actually to steal, resell, or actually patient healthcare data.
So how long after the adjustments and enhancements are made with, your prototype and your prototype testing before it can actually make it to market? What kind of timeline are we looking at?
I mean, it should happen by the end of the year. I mean, obviously, we're not manufacturing ourselves medical device, etc. So we'll need to find, obviously, partners, partnerships, with manufacturers that want to integrate their chip into their system of security for a medical device, for example. So we're not selling the medical device. We're just selling an important element of their security.
How are you protected for patents and licensing right now?
We have four patents that have been granted by the U.S. office, for example, who's the main institution, that for intellectual property. So, and we are continuing in building our intellectual property. So it's, we not like most, because you have to understand that our inventions are physical. It's very difficult, as you know, to create a very strong IP if you only have, software solutions. Like most people, the industry in cybersecurity, it's all about software. It's very difficult. We have that strength that our foundation IP is connected to physical device and physical phenomenon. So that's what we protected. So it's very strong.
Well, we've touched on how you can enhance protection for high value assets like self-driving cars and critical systems. Obviously, there's nothing higher, more important than our healthcare systems. But if somebody wants to get in touch with you to discuss other applications, can they just reach out to you via your website, Francis, or is there another way?
Absolutely. We have all the information is available in our website, and they can reach me very easily, and I will always respond to them.
And of course, you talked about a timeline, which I consider for incredibly aggressive and exciting. By end of this year. Can you tell us what other shareholder updates we should be looking forward to in the first or second quarter here for 2024?
Yes, we actually right now we're in discussions with potential partners, and hopefully we'll be able to announce at some point these collaborations, and I think that could hopefully that will be pleasing the shareholders and on the future maybe investors in the company.
Well, as always, Francis, thank you so much for the update. It's very exciting and always reminds me of a good science fiction thriller when I get off any interview with you. So we appreciate the update. And for everybody out there looking for more information, please go to the Quantum eMotion website listed below. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.